Hello, my friends. I hope you're all healthy and well, and I do wish to welcome you back. Just a word of warning, this video is a bit longer than usual, but if you can, stick it out to the end, please do. I do admit that I rushed a little through the last video and therefore left out a few things I wanted to mention. Having said that, I also received a few requests and email asking me to talk about certain topics. So today I am going to take my time and go through the things I missed before getting into the more serious matters and your requests, emails, and DMs. One of the things I wanted to mention in my previous video is the photograph of Archie and supposedly Harry on the swings. Firstly, I showed the photograph to a few people without telling them that it is supposedly Archie. I asked them to guess the child's age. Two said the child was approximately 4, two said 5, and one even said 6. No one guessed that the child in the photograph could be 2. The average 2-year-old is 2 foot 11 inches or 87.7 centimeters. The average 4-year-old is 3 foot 4 inches or 102 centimeters. And the average 5-year-old about 3 foot 7 inches or 109 centimeters. So what I did was I Googled what percentage of the legs of an adult is that of his total height. It differs slightly for men and women, but it has to be at least 50%. And the average for men and women is approximately 52.9%. So Harry is 6 foot 1 inches tall or 1 meter 86 centimeters, which means that his legs must be at least 50% of his height or a little more, but let's err on the side of caution and use 50%. Although in Harry's case, I'm sure it's more like 52%, but never mind. Okay, so I measured Harry's legs in the downloaded picture in centimeters and millimeters, and then measured the kid. So I turned the measurement into the real length of Harry's legs, which should be half his height, so thus approximately 90 centimeters. And although I've used the 50% instead of 52.9, according to my measurements, the child in the photograph is about 106 centimeters tall. Now, how did I get this? I was not sure about the perspective of the photograph, so I used Harry's back leg and his front leg as measurements and got an average between the two measurements. So this basically means that the child is a tall 4-year-old or a short 5-year-old. Anything but a 2-year-old. Okay, so this was a little complicated. So let us go a simpler route. Remember the beach clip and remember how the child slipped between supposedly Harry's legs? Well, we assumed it was Harry, but we did not see his face, did we? Now we are seeing the two characters on the swings, and once again we assume it is Harry and Archie. But again, Harry's face is not visible, so it can be anyone. So what I think is happening here is that Harry and Meghan, or their PR, are trying to create this image of a happy family. Yet, stories from Montecito, Santa Barbara, and LA are not painting a picture of a happy family. Instead, it is said that Harry and Meghan are very much each on their own mission and seldom together and when they are together, the peace is short-lived. Meghan is said to be very impatient with Harry, and blow-ups are followed by periods of love-bombing, tears, whether fake or real, doesn't matter, phone calls and threats, and that this has been the pattern since they arrived in the United States. Anyway, so that's all the less important things out of the way. So I would like to move on to your email. And many of your emails were about Lady C's last two videos. And this, along with the gossip that has been reaching my ears, is what actually convinced me to address the next subject in this video. Again, I'm giving a very strong and very serious disclaimer. I am not a medical professional and never have been, and do not profess to know more than anyone else. What is to follow is from personal experience and purely my opinion. I've mentioned in a previous video that I suffered from depression and even admitted that I attempted suicide a few times. I've also known people who attempted suicide and two who actually carried it out. So it is on this very sad basis that I'll start my discussion on the Harry and Meghan scenario and taking Lady C's last two videos into account. There had been a lot of back and forth about Harry speaking so publicly about his problems. It is absolutely essential to seek help when you or someone you know suffers from mental or psychological problems. Even your family and closest friends are not equipped to deal with serious or potentially serious issues. And although it will help the healing or recovery process to take someone into your confidence, the best they can and should do for you is to help you find the right person or right treatment or right therapy for you. To rely on someone close to you for healing and even support could be downright dangerous. There is a very valid reason why professionals study for many years before they can treat people. These treatments and therapy is done in confidence, and any professional who divulges anything you told him or her can lose their accreditation and or license to practice. And there is a very good reason for that too. When we are in a situation of heightened emotion, we do tend to do and say things which is not necessarily true, because it is our perception at that time of the scenario. Our very emotional thoughts may not be ordered or sensible, and often may border on paranoia, if not full-fledged paranoia. What the sufferer does not see while in a state of heightened emotion is that things can change, and with the right help will change, and therefore what he or she has to say in this state may look and sound quite differently 6 months or a year later. So, if you get to spill your guts on TV like Harry did, or in public, what are you going to do 6 months down the line when you realize what you said was actually bollocks and purely your screwed perception at the time? It is thus never a good idea to spill your deepest and darkest thoughts in public, as it can and will come back and bite you in the backside, which may even result in you falling right back into your previous self-destructive pattern. The other particular danger of celebrities doing so is that they all have a following of sorts, people who are as different as their fingerprints. And these seemingly easy solutions that Prince Harry and Oprah and their friends are offering does not work for everyone. Harry and Oprah are basically offering a McDonald's drive-through with a limited menu, but only on mental health. So let's talk a little about depression. Without telling you too much about what I went through, as the details does not really matter, I can tell you that I saw at least two mental health professionals before I was finally referred to someone who got through to me. I remember how I felt after seeing the first two. I felt mostly irritable and even less fulfilled. I walked out after each session feeling that I wasted my time and money and would have been better off fighting my demons and issues by myself. I felt that their sympathy and soft approach was fake, as I knew that they heard similar or maybe even worse 10 times every day. Finally, I reached such a level of nuts that I stood up during a church service and told the minister that I did not agree with his sermon. He then invited me to go see him at home, and to make a long story short, he referred me to a psychiatrist who served for the military and the police force. One of the first things this man said to me was when he asked me whether I liked feeling like shit every day. Because if I did, I would be wasting his time and my own. However, if I did not, then I would work with him to feel better. This obviously shocked me, but once it sank in, I realized that here I finally had a sounding board, someone whom I could not fool by saying things I thought they wanted to hear. The other thing he said was that if I did not feel and think differently after seeing him for 6 months, I was to go and look for someone else, as then he was not the right fit for me. So, just like Harry, I had issues with my family, and I had a failed marriage behind me. But although this man took some time to get information on my background, he absolutely refused to dwell on it or dissect it, because it is not about what happened in the past that is important, but how we deal with it in the future that is important. In order to find a way to deal with it, we had to find my strengths and my weaknesses. I was taught to accept my anger towards the people who wronged me and to move on and work on my own life. I was taught to take care of myself, as if I didn't, I could not effectively take care of anyone else, including my children. I do not really want to go into more specifics, but suffice it to say, 6 months into these therapy sessions, I could at last see myself as a worthy human being again. Now, back to Harry. We hear him blaming his father and family for a lot of the things which he feels had gone wrong in his life. And this leads me to believe that he is not with the right therapist or doing the right form of therapy which is right for him. For as long as he is playing the blame game, he will be stuck in this vicious circle of being angry and feeling sorry for himself, in my opinion. So on to Lady C and other people's remarks on Twitter, etc., of the family and friends' fear that Harry may commit suicide should Meghan leave him. Again, please, my dear friends, what I have to say on this is my opinion based on my personal experience. and nothing more. I can refer you to a variety of books and articles, some good, some not so much, and at the end of the day, you will still be confused. So let us stick to some generalizations and keep it simple. Men are more inclined to consider suicide when they are feeling cornered, desperate, or embarrassed. Cornered may mean when they find themselves in a situation they cannot see a way out of. For example, the loss of a job with no prospects of a new one, bankruptcy, etc. Or when they are caught out in a crime. Desperation may mean something like homelessness, etc. And embarrassment could be something like being falsely accused of stealing at work, etc. Women may have similar issues, but with the added hormonal issues like PMS, pregnancy, and menopause. A lot of what Lady C said is true and does make sense. If Meghan decides to leave Harry, he may feel despair and embarrassment, particularly if he wakes up and realizes that she had been feeding him a bunch of baloney and he made a fool of himself. However, I believe that Harry has his own level of narcissism and is well onto his way of boosting his already inflated ego. And should he find himself in a place where he is the top dog in terms of fame and adulation, he might or may or will fight back. And Meghan will be the one totally humiliated. Men are also more inclined to move on faster after the breakdown of a relationship. And I'm really generalizing here. So please, my dear male listeners, don't come for me. It does not mean, though, that they do not feel despair, anger, or sadness. But men are more apt at compartmentalizing life's issues. I don't know how many of you are familiar with that advertisement where the guy explains the male and the female brain. Men tend to put different matters and different issues into different little boxes which they stack away in their brain, whereas women tend to stack all kinds of things randomly because they are more emotional. Anyway, so when men have a job, colleagues, friends, or a hobby, they tend to fill the space left by a partner with all of that much faster and much easier. Most men have a safety mechanism in their brains that women do not always have. Like I said, maybe because of our hormones and propensity to being more emotional. Harry, having served in the army for 10 years, should have developed that safety mechanism due to the discipline of military life. Having grown up in a single parent scenario should have taught him that as well, as there was no mommy to come and kiss all the scrapes and scratches better. With Harry having been the main attraction on a number of programs over the last few months, I think he is well on his way to regaining his confidence and carving a niche for himself. I'm also told that he is not the little lost boy he is being portrayed as. He's obviously out and about, having filmed with James Corden, having done the Vax concert, the podcast with Dax Shepard, and now the mental health series with Oprah. He also mentions a friendship of sorts with Orlando Bloom and David Foster. The notion that Harry is isolated is thus false. And I can tell you that the best medicine for depression is to stay busy and keep your mind occupied. It certainly worked for me. I also suspect that the status quo will remain the same, regardless of what happens to Harry and Meghan's relationship. Remember, Harry is the one from a royal and very rich family, and Meghan has never reached any extraordinary heights. Meghan has also not ever been a very nice person, not even before her marriage to Harry. It is my opinion that should they split up, Harry will continue to receive support from the likes of Oprah, Orlando Bloom, James Corden, David Foster, and even his family, and that it will be Meghan who will be ostracized. It is thus my humble opinion that Harry is not a good candidate for suicide. It is also my opinion that regardless of his mental state, Harry has to be taught accountability. Harry has to be put in a situation where he has to rely on his own strengths and talents. Harry will not heal or live up to his potential if people keep making excuses for him or pussyfoot around him. Now that, my dear friends, is just my humble opinion, and I do accept that there will be many of you who will not agree with me on this matter, and that is fine. We all differ, we take things differently, we handle things differently. I tend to be artistic, but I do not walk around with my head in the clouds. And I think the last person I saw recognized that and realized that I was not going to do well with all kinds of airy-fairy, crazy kind of therapies and talk, etc., etc. So we had to get down to the nitty-gritty of what my problem was and sort that out and get me strong enough to deal with it. Other people may need the softer touch, but all I can do is share my experiences with you. And that is hopefully what I did today. And yeah, that's it. My opinion in a nutshell, or shall I say, in a video. Okay, my dear friends, there are still many things to talk about, and we'll do so on the next video. Until then, thank you so much for your support, your email. For those of you who bought me a cup of coffee, it is really so appreciated. It's you guys who make me come back time and time again. All of you. Thank you for your comments in the comment section, etc. And to make a long story short, stay well, take care of yourselves. Until I see you on the next video. Bye.